Hi, Imran.
Hi,
Nice to have you here.
and it's nice to be here.
We've been trying to do this for a while now, yeah.
Yes, I do apologize, but last week it just hit me. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to schedule this in advance, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, thank you. I've known you for many years.
Yes.
Before knowing you better, I used to see you doing performances and comedy shows and all that before even, you were friends with my kids. And then, of course, we got closer, and I kind of got to know you better.
Yes.
And at a certain phase in your life, I saw a few changes happening. But I'm really curious and interested, and I want to share the story that you have with our audience. So I want to know where you started, how all of this happened, being a comedian and then going into radio and all that. So tell us.
Wow. First of all, I love the setup.
Oh, thank you.
It's very cozy. I like that you have all these nice messages on the wall, and of course over here, I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Wow, where did it start? This actually goes back to when I first grabbed the mic when I think I was 19 years old. And I was at this outdoor event, and we were helping my friend's father, who owned a sound and lights company. Mm-hmm. And we were basically just there helping him out. And, it was always fun. And I think the MC went missing. The host of that event went missing.
Okay.
And my friend's father was like, "Hey, Imran, you're shameless. Can you just grab this paper, make a few announcements for the client? They can't find the MC, and the event needs to, they can't stop. The show must goes on. The show must go on." And I said,
yeah.
I was like, okay. I mean, how hard is this going to be? So I grabbed the mic, started making those announcements, and then next thing you know, I'm interacting with the guests, and I was just genuinely having a good time. And next thing you know, I started getting calls saying, "Hey, we've got an event, and we would like you to MC."
No way.
And again, I was 19, and I had no idea what to do. I'm like, you want me to show up? And then they said, "Yes, how much?" And I'm like, "No way. You want to pay me to come hang out with you and talk, just grab the mic and just make a few announcements?" And they're like, "Yeah." Again, I had no idea what I was doing. And back, I was 19. That was what, year 2000, 2001, maybe? Yeah. So 99, 2000.
Okay.
I was just fresh out of high school. And, we didn't have Google back then to just run a search for how to MC or what are the responsibilities of an MC. So I kind of had to wing it. And I kind of fell in love with it. And I built a rep of the guy on the mic. And I remember my first proper gig was Coca-Cola in Bahrain. And to me, I'm like, wow, that's it. I've made it.
You mean they called you to MC an event for them?
Yeah, they had an annual staff party, and they said, we want you to MC, and we want you to come in and entertain our audience. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? And they're like, we want you to host some fun games with the audience. So I literally sat there and made up these games. And it was an amazing experience. And I think by that time I was around 21 years old.
Okay.
And that's when I started to develop a rep. This was before radio. This was before comedy.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's the thing. That's very interesting because I thought that it was always comedy.
No.
I didn't know that you started by being an MC.
Yeah, and it had happened because whenever I would MC, I would like to make the audience laugh. So keep in mind, my responsibility was just to host the event, carry the event from the beginning till the end. But I would just see if funny, I would identify something funny, I would crack a joke, and they would laugh. But I never really labeled it or thought of stand-up comedy. A friend of mine from high school, Sarah Bushnaq, her father, he told me, he's like, "Listen, you need to do stand up. This was the year 2000,
Okay.
21 years ago. And I said, you're crazy. Where am I going to do stand up in Bahrain? And he's like, trust me, I'll take care of it. I'll book you at this restaurant. And I chickened out. I said, there's no way I'm going to go on stage and make people laugh on purpose. So I didn't do it. This was the year 2000.
Okay. Now, what was he? What was his area of interest? I mean, what was he doing that he said, "I'll book you"? And
So, I'll try to remember the details. I remember it was a birthday dinner.
okay.
And I'm not sure if it was his birthday or my friend's birthday. And I think I just got up and made a speech. I just decided to talk about whatever. And there were lots of jokes involved. And he got really excited. He's like, listen, you can be a stand-up comedian. And I'm like, nah, where am I gonna do stand-up in Bahrain?
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
And keep in mind, this was 21 years ago.
Yes.
No Netflix. No, we didn't even have DVDs, And I remember, now this is all kind of falling into place now.
Right,
This is going to go back to where it started. In 2001, you remember ICQ?
I remember that. What is it?
ICQ was a chat
Yeah.
platform we used to use back in the day.
Yeah.
And somebody sent me an MP3 through ICQ, which took 10 days,
to
if
get
not
to
more.
download or whatever.
And it was the
yeah.
entire audio of Eddie Murphy's Delirious.
Oh.
So Eddie Murphy had
okay.
a comedy special called Delirious. And again, I had no idea what it was. Obviously, I identified that this is a stand-up comedy show, but I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't even know it was Eddie Murphy to start with, but I fell in love with it.
Okay.
I listened to the audio
Yeah.
of a comedy show, not even the video.
Not even video. Yeah.
And because I heard it so many times, I memorized all his jokes. Okay, now those jokes are a little inappropriate, but I memorized all those jokes. I remember I went to college, and I'm like, hey, do you guys know Eddie Murphy Delirious? Some said yes, some said no. And the ones who said no, I would repeat Eddie Murphy's jokes. And I'm like, oh, there's a joke about ice cream. There's a joke about this. There's a joke about that. And I would just share those jokes. And this was at University of Bahrain.
Yeah.
Me standing
Yeah.
up.
So, okay. Let me just ask you something. Now,
Sure.
you brought up university because I was going to ask. Now, you're 19 years old. So you must be going to college.
Yes.
So you were at the university at the time.
Yes.
What were you studying?
Well, at that time, I was studying business informatics at the University of Bahrain.
Business informatics.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, business informatics was AMA, sorry.
Okay.
It was called BIS, Business Information Systems.
Okay.
It was a thing back then.
So
Yeah.
something like an IT, business IT.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a combination
Okay.
of business management
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
IT was just,
Yeah.
you know.
It just picking up. Yeah.
So-
So it okay. And nothing to do with comedy or jokes or MCs.
It was a funny experience, though.
Okay. So then, during that time, you also got into emceeing and okay.
I was just
okay.
emceeing random events. But a lot of things kind of connected with
Right,
each other.
right.
So
So you said at the university you started telling
I just
those jokes.
telling those jokes, and I would actually
yeah.
say it. I'm like, oh, that's Eddie Murphy, and the ones who didn't know it got interested. They're like, oh, where can we see this? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I got an MP3, which took me like 10 days to download because someone sent it to me. And how it all started to get together, how I started becoming an entertainer. In high school, I was very active in the music scene.
Okay.
I was known more of a musician than anything. So
and
because
in what kind?
I used to play the guitar.
Okay.
Well, in grade 9, I used to play the oud. And then in grade 10, I switched to the guitar. Now, because I was a musician, for some reason, people assumed that I knew how to work the DJ mixer.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was put in positions where they're like, hey, can you come DJ? You know how to DJ, right? I'm like, no. And there was a few incidents where they were like outdoor events at college where they would ask me to take care of the music and I would just have to figure it out on the spot. So life kind of positioned me into just being on a stage, and everything I did was in front of a microphone.
Okay.
So even when I used to DJ, I'd grab the mic and hype the crowd up. And then next thing you know, I become a wedding DJ.
A wedding DJ.
Yes, I was a wedding DJ, and same thing. I wouldn't just play the music. I'd grab the mic. I'd get the people involved. If I felt like they needed a push, I'd grab the mic and I said, "Come on, everybody to the dance floor." So I was that kind of DJ. You either love or hate that kind of DJ.
Yeah.
Either you just keep quiet and play the music, or just would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
So it was. I was in between basically. So that all kind of, positioned me to just love being on a stage and entertaining people, whether I am DJing, whether I'm emceeing. So that went on from, let's say, 2000 all the way till 2006.
So you graduated from college?
I graduated late. I graduated 2006.
Oh, okay.
And,
okay.
2006 was a turning point, you could say, because that's the year I joined the radio station.
Oh, so you did join the radio station, okay, as a
presenter.
As a presenter.
Yes.
Not a DJ. What do they call them? Radio jockeys. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So you were playing music.
Yes.
And because at the time I remember that it wasn't just music. People would talk, would bring in, people to interview and talk to. Okay.
I mean, I mean, they used to call us radio DJs.
Right.
But the proper term is radio jockey, RJ.
Right.
So I remember again, 99, 2000,
Okay.
I used to listen to the radio on my way to school. And
Ahmed Al-Khinna.
Ahmed Al-Khinna, yes. I was actually just going to mention it.
Yeah.
When I was on my, I think I was grade 4 or something.
Yeah.
I was on my way to school, and I'm trying to remember if this was on the way back home or on the way to school. But anyway, I used to listen to Ahmed Al-Khinna. And I used to tell my mom, I'm like, "Mom, this is what I want to do when I grow up."
Okay.
And, my mom, bless her, she wanted me to be a banker, a
Yeah,
doctor.
of course.
So she would just be like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And so I grew up listening to Radio Bahrain.
Yeah.
And then in 2000, I was listening to the radio and I said, this is what I want to do.
Okay.
So I found out where the radio station was. And every year, at least 3 to 4 times, I would show up at the gate with my CV. I'm just trying to get to the radio station. I didn't know anybody.
Interesting.
And I did that consistently for 6 years. I would just randomly remember and I go, "Oh, I think it's time to send them another demo."
Okay.
But again, because I didn't know anyone, my demos would just end up, well, God knows where they ended up.
Okay.
2006, they placed an ad on the radio saying, "Hey, guess what? We're looking for new DJs. If you think you have what it takes to be a radio DJ, get in touch with us. Send us a demo and your resume."
I guess I know who went in.
So I remember where I was when I heard that ad. I was next to Mother Care. I was driving. That's how sharp that memory is.
Yeah.
And I was listening, and I'm like, oh my god, I need to apply. I applied, and I remember I made it on the last day of submission.
Okay.
So basically, I'm telling you the story of how it all kind of started.
Yeah.
So I applied, and like 2 weeks later, and I remember this. I was still my last year in college. I get a call, and it's a weird number, and I answer it, and it was Mohammed Rumehi from Radio Bahrain. Mohammed Rumehi was our supervisor.
Right.
And I recognized the voice immediately.
Okay.
He's like, "Hello, Imran Aradi," and I said yes, and I recognized the voice, and he's like, "This is Mohammed Rumehi from Radio Bahrain." And I remember I was in college when I got that call. I was freaking out with the phone, but of course I sounded very calm.
Of course.
And the person right in front of me, funnily, was DJ Outlaw. I was hanging out with him when I got the call. And I answered the phone, and I'm like, yes, this is Imran. He's like, "You have an interview tomorrow at 4 p.m. And I'm like, I'll be there. I did not sleep that night.
No, I'm sure.
I did not sleep. I'm like,
did you practice? Did you?
Yeah, I visualized. I'm like, okay, they're going to ask me what music am I going to play. They're going to ask me what music I like. They're going to try to test my language. I'm like, what do I do? And I did not sleep all night. Went to the interview. It was a great interview. I was grilled by 3 DJs.
Okay.
And yeah, next thing you know, I got selected for training. And by that time, I was a wedding DJ, I was emceeing, and then I just jumped from that to, oh, he's also the guy on the radio.
Okay.
And that's why I love telling the newcomers, I'm like, radio can do wonders to your name.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
And I remember sometimes I would spend 6 to 7 hours at the studio, even if it's not my shift. I was that annoying guy who would sit at the back and just, look at what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joined the radio 2006. My first show was a Wednesday evening, 6 p.m. And Mohammed Rumehi was with me, guiding me and mentoring me. And I'll never forget that. I remember my first words. I remember the first song I played.
Wow.
And
What was the first song?
Vertical Horizon. Okay. And the song was called Everything You Want.
All right.
Yeah. And and that was a turning point.
Yeah.
Because I had a voice, and I was already DJing. I was already emceeing, and that's when I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, I could do this for a living.
Right.
So at that time, a lot of people said, hey, listen, this is not a job. This is a hobby. You can do it on the side, but get a real job, And I said, but I'm happy doing this.
What is a real job? I want to know. To them, it's it's a 9 to 5 job, and
very good question.
Yeah.
But I'm right now I'm 40 years old. So when I was in my early 20s, a real job was you work at a bank. You work or you become an engineer or a doctor.
Oh yeah.
So those were the careers that we were taught to follow.
Right.
And since high school, I wanted to be an IT consultant.
Oh, you wanted to be?
Yeah, because I love technology.
Okay.
I'm very, I'm all about the technology, and that's why I'm really impressed with your setup. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
So
it's nice to hear it from somebody professional like you.
Well,
thank you.
I'm a fan, actually.
Thank you.
I wouldn't use the word professional, but so I had so many jobs. I worked in telecom. I worked in marketing.
Okay. Tell me something. So you got into radio and you're emceeing and you're really interested in that area.
Yes.
Did you go and take courses or decide to go into that profession by studying further to become better, or you really didn't need to?
Did I need to? Absolutely.
Okay.
I think regardless of an individual's level or performance, they should always look for ways to improve. Funnily, at this stage right now, I am taking courses online about content strategy, team building, digital marketing. I'm doing that on my own online because that information is available.
Right.
And it's extremely affordable, and you can get a certification online. But this is what I'm doing now. Back then, there was nothing available. There were no courses in radio presenting. We would depend on the previous or
the experience of
experienced presenters, and they were a wealth of knowledge.
Right.
But what we had to do on our own was the adaptation phase, because technology changed, social media kicked in, radios. There are different types of radio stations, and we are the only English radio station in the kingdom, so we were at a huge advantage. And I remember 2007, 2008, when you'd tell someone, "Oh, I'm on the radio," and that look on their face, like, "Oh my God, really?"
Yeah.
And that was the best feeling in the world.
Like a celebrity.
It made you feel that special. We still go through that as well, but then again, we're now competing with a smartphone. So things are different now.
Yeah.
But back then, it was purely trial and error. And then once information was widely available online, like when we could search for other presenters, other radio stations online, I started to explore, and I actually got in touch with presenters from Dubai and the US. I'd be like, "Hey, I'm a DJ from the Middle East, and I just wanted to, find out what you do, and then, maybe we could help each other out." And so many people would respond, and I made friends, and some of them I'm still in touch with them today.
Right. Okay.
So that's how we learned back then. And this is the point where I start answering your first question.
Okay.
Where, so comedy just didn't, like, I didn't find comedy. Comedy found me. And I think it's because of everything that I did that I just mentioned. I was given the opportunity to get on stage and perform. So in 2008, do you remember the Axis of Evil comedy tour? Maz Jibrani,
Oh,
Ahmed
yes,
Ahmed.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So they were coming to Bahrain, and I knew the organizer. And I met him in college. I used to see him at the gym, and we
Right.
became friends.
Okay.
So he comes up to me at the gym, and he's like, "Hey, Imran, do you know the Axis of Evil?" And I said, "Oh, the Arab American comics." And he said, "Yes." He's like, "Oh, I'm bringing them to Bahrain." And I'm like, "Oh, no way." And he's like, "Yeah, I need a local MC." I'm like, "Oh." He's like, "Would you want to do it?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he's like,
Of course,
and then
yeah.
he's like, "But you got to be funny." And I'm like, "Ooh, you want me to be funny on purpose?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You got to write jokes." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I could do that on purpose." And he's like, "Anyway, spot is yours if you want it. We're gonna make a call, look for local comedians to be opening acts, but we want you to carry the evening for us. You open, do your opening set,
So-
introduce the
So,
comedians."
yeah. Yeah.
And of course, I did not hesitate. I immediately said yes to the opportunity.
Okay.
And we met with the group of local comics who wanted to audition to be on the Axis of Evil comedy tour Bahrain. Again, I had no idea what I was doing. I used to make people laugh on stage, but that was not what I was hired for.
True.
So when we went to the audition, they asked me, they're like, "What are you gonna talk about?" And I froze. I'm like, "I don't know." I'm gonna talk about my background. I'm gonna talk about school. And I remember the organizers were looking at me. They're like, "Oh my God, this guy is gonna bomb on stage."
Yeah.
But again, they're like, "All right, we're gonna go with this."
And no audition or anything. They didn't tell you. Okay, show us.
Yeah, they tried.
Yeah. Okay.
That's when they're like, "What are your jokes going to
Jokes,
be
yeah.
about?" And I, at that point, I genuinely didn't know what I was going to talk about. I was like, I was a very confused child. I come from two different backgrounds. There was
Right.
a lot of comedy there. My mom's originally Pakistani. My dad's Bahraini. I didn't even know my name when I was a kid, because my mom would call me Imran, and my dad called me Imran.
I'm right.
And for some reason, in grade 1, I was in the Indian school. I don't know why. They called me Omran. So I genuinely didn't know what my name was. I was so confused. So I'm like, there's a lot of comedy there. I can talk about that. But
Okay.
when you explain it,
Yeah.
it's not really funny.
It's fun. Yeah.
So they're like, "Oh, okay, you know what? We're just going to, fingers crossed, and hopefully Imran does a good job."
Good job. Yeah.
I remember it was October 2008. We met Maz Jibrani and Ahmed Ahmed, and I was so excited to meet them.
Right.
Because I'd watch them. I bought their DVD, and I used to watch them over and over again. And Maz Jibrani is a legend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
True.
to have my first show with comedians who have achieved so much already, to share the stage with them, I'm like, this is a blessing. This
It's
is
a dream come true.
to me, I'm like, this is amazing. And and other countries, you got to work to earn that stage. And because we didn't have a comedy platform,
Right.
we didn't have the foundation. So when they showed up to Bahrain, that was the opportunity. So there were, I think, 4 local comedians who were going to open, and I was the MC. I was the person who faced the music. I walked through the crowd, and I was the first one to grab the mic. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I was so nervous. I remember the organizer comes up to me. He's like, "Imran, we got to start." And I wasn't nervous at all. I was hanging out backstage. Well, it wasn't really backstage. It was like on the opposite
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
We were at Ahli Club, which was a sports hall.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was
yeah.
no really backstage.
Yeah.
We were like in this room on the other, like just behind the audience. So I'm like, I got to walk through the crowd? And he said, yes. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I started walking through the crowd, and a few people noticed. They're like, is he getting on stage? So they started to clap, and I swear to God, my heart stopped. Because when they started
Yeah.
to clap and I was walking through the
Yeah.
audience, I'm like,
I feel it. I feel my heart is going to
I'm
stop
like-
now.
And there were, by the way, there were 2,000 people there that night.
2000.
2,000 people.
Yeah.
I got on stage, And I don't even remember my first words. And I just said something like, wow, guys, can you believe it? Axis of Evil is here. And everybody cheered.
Yeah.
And my opening line was not meant to be a joke. I was just sharing information.
Yeah.
I said, oh, I thought I was selected for this because I was special. I thought I was funny, but apparently it's because I'm half Pakistani. That was not supposed to be funny.
Okay.
But everybody laughed. I even have the video where I was taken by surprise that, why was that funny?
Funny, yeah.
So what if I'm half Pakistani? And I said, and I'm half Bahraini. And that's where everybody just, they for some reason, they found that hilarious. I think maybe it's the way I said it.
Maybe it was the environment. Maybe it was because they were already in the mood, of
it worked
laughing, and it worked out. And yeah.
And that was my first laugh.
Yeah.
And I got it immediately when I got on stage. And then I was out of control.
Yeah.
It was just one punchline after another. I was improvising the whole thing. And the organizers were surprised. They're like, where is this coming from? He didn't talk about this. I fed off the audience energy. Again, at that time, it was my first show. So there were so many things I did not know about stand-up. But I had a fantastic time. I remember Facebook was a thing in 2008.
Yeah.
So
It just
went
started,
back,
I think. Yeah.
went back home and there was a Facebook group or an event page. And I looked at all the comments and all of them were like, we did not know Imran has the stand-up comedy gene. Like, where did this come from?
Okay.
And at that moment, I remember I was sitting at home, I was reading the comments. I'm like, this is what I want to do.
Okay.
This is what I want to pursue. I'm going to take this seriously and I'm going to put a plan together.
Tell me something. Now you dive in. They come up to you, they say, we want you to do this, and you haven't done it before, and you say, sure. What is it in you? I mean, you don't back up. What is it in you that you just dive in?
I think it's first of all, I recognize the opportunity.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's just the adrenaline rush. I mean, I've been in so many situations where they ask me to do something and I have no idea how to do it. And I just have to figure it out on the spot. Not just performance related, anything.
Okay. Yeah.
If I feel like, I could pull this off.
Right.
When you really want to do something,
Yeah.
you really want to do it, you'll find a way.
You grab the opportunity and you say, I'll just dive in.
And, that's actually, no one's really asked me that question.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So I think a lot of it has to do with how I was brought up. So my mom, bless her, single mother, I watched her struggle to raise us,
Yeah.
So every time an opportunity was presented to me, I'm like, oh, this is good. This is gonna do good. And I would just go for it. So, and I think it dates back to high school. I remember they needed to record presentations.
Right.
Again, because I knew how to play the guitar. For some reason, they assumed I knew how to work the equipment. So they told me, they're like, hey, can you come help us with the equipment? And I said, sure.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'd show up an hour early trying to figure out the equipment so I can help them. And I pulled it off. I'm like, okay, this doesn't sound too difficult. And I think that kind of put me in the mindset where instead of saying no, figure out how to do it.
Right.
And that lesson or that way of thinking, I think it brought me to where I am today. And there were so many opportunities where I got nervous. Like I remember in 2017 when I was asked to head the radio station, I was so nervous. I'm like, I've been a presenter for years, but heading the team or being the person who's running the show, that's going to be that's
a different story.
A whole different ball game.
Yeah.
I went back home. I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? This is an opportunity. And I'm going to figure out. And then from 2017 till today, I feel like I can probably write a book now.
Okay. Yeah.
In another 3 years, I'd probably say the same thing again. Okay. So I think it's because I always would love to grab the opportunity. I just stuck to that mindset. And
nice.
I just go for it, I guess.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think to give you a better answer, it was asking the right question. So when I was presented with an opportunity, instead of saying no, I would refer to the question, how am I going to do this? What are the steps I need to take that are going to allow me or enable me to deliver the task I was given? And you don't always succeed.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
if you have a few success stories, or if you pull it off even 5 out of 10 times, 3 out of 10 times, 1 out of 10.
10 times, yeah. That's
Good.
that's how I always looked at it. Every time I'm a very risk taker. So as you said, when something comes up, I take it and then I say, what will go wrong? Either I'll succeed or I will not succeed. If I did not succeed, at least I tried it. But if I don't try it, later on I will say, oh, I wish I had.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the same thing happened to me when they called me and they said, we want you to head the radio station. And I was a bit nervous. I'm like, can I think about it? And they're like, yeah, think about it, but don't say no.
Yeah. Okay.
And then same thing. I'm like, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to fail. I've failed so many times.
Yeah.
I've failed in so many things. Even being a stand-up comedian, I remember I was performing in Amman, and I met the local comics, and they're like, hey, do you have some advice you can give us? And I said, it's okay to do a terrible job. It's okay to bomb on stage.
Right.
And they're like, have you ever bombed on stage? I'm like, oh my God, so many times.
Yeah.
So many times. So yeah, that's how comedy started.
Okay.
And not long after that show, I performed in Dubai, and that was a very big deal to me, because there were 3 shows in Dubai, and it had an amazing lineup. It had Whitney Cummings. I'm not sure if you know Whitney. She has a very famous show now called Whitney.
Okay.
Dwayne Perkins. I used to watch his stuff online all the time, and an Italian-American comic called Sebastian. I remember I was with them. I was the MC for the comedy show.
Oh, over there in Dubai.
Over there in Dubai, and that was March 2009, and this is actually quite funny. I was in Dubai. We were having dinner. It was after the first show, and my friend's father, Abdullah Fawzi Bushnell, Abdullah's his son, called me. And I told him, I was like, Fawzi, remember when you asked me to do stand-up 8 years ago? He's like, yes. I'm like, I'm in Dubai performing. And he's like, you should have listened to me.
Well, I did.
I think everything happens for a reason. There is a chance I would have taken that opportunity. I would have definitely, most probably bombed on stage, and that would have scarred me. And I've seen so many comedians or so many people try stand-up comedy for the first time, and if it doesn't work out, they don't do it again.
Right.
And I think one of the best advice any comedian has given me was, you're not a comedian until you bomb on stage. And that was Russell Peters.
Oh, okay.
And I was really excited. We went to the Amman Comedy Festival in Jordan. That's where I met Russell. And
he was there. Yeah.
He was there. And then I don't even know how the topic came up. And I think I just flat out asked him for advice. That's what I did every time I met someone who has amazing achievements. I would just try to get knowledge.
Right.
I'd be like, even if it's just a small piece of advice, even if it's one tip. And then he told me, he's like, Imran, you're not a comedian until you bomb on stage. And then he asked me, he's like, are you ready to be broke for the next 5 years of your life? And I'm like, I'm already broke. He's like, yeah, if you're ready to be broke for the next 5 years, he's like, you will probably make it in comedy. And I didn't know what he was talking about until life got difficult.
Yeah.
And I was a stand-up comedian.
Okay.
That was all I was doing. But I pulled through, and I think 3 or 4 years after that evening, it hit me. I'm like, that's what Russell was talking about.
Okay.
Because sometimes situations can push you to give up. And there were moments where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop all of this. I'm going to stop the radio. I'm going to stop comedy, and I'm going to look for a real job.
I was just going to ask you that. Were you working at all during this stage, or it was it just, you graduated and you immediately went into radio and then just emceeing and comedy shows and all that?
I mean, I had so many different jobs in between. I mean, when I was in college, I had like 5 part-time jobs at a time just to, pay the bills and pay for my tuition.
No, I mean, when you graduated, did you really go work 9 to 5 job,
I was
as
working,
we call it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had full-time jobs in between, but eventually I would just leave because I would look for something else. And I've landed some really decent jobs in the past. I was an ICT consultant. I was a product marketing manager for a telecom company. A lot of people don't know this, but I used to work for a cosmetics and perfume company.
Doing what?
I was managing products.
Okay.
I was working for Faces once upon a time.
Oh,
Again, opportunity.
Yeah.
It was a job fair. I showed up with my resume, and you know what? This is actually something I possibly forgot to share. Nobody wanted to hire me. No matter where I went, I'd go with my resume and they'd say, "Oh, you don't have the experience." I'm like, "But that's what I want." I'm like, "You know
Yeah.
what? I don't want a salary." I'd actually flat out say it. And
Yeah.
that taught me a lesson because if you don't value yourself, no one's going to value
value.
you. And I was so focused on getting the experience, I completely forgot that I need to put a value on my time.
Yeah.
Even if I don't have the experience, obviously it's not going to be a high value. It'll be 1%, but there has to be a value. That was a lesson I learned in my early 20s. And I was so bitter about not getting a job because nobody wanted to hire me. So what I did was I created my own opportunities. So
Okay.
when I couldn't get a job, I either looked for part-time jobs or I would, at one point, organize an event and say, "Hey guys, I'm going to find a venue that's not doing very well. I'm going to get on stage and try some new jokes. You guys are welcome to try it, and we're going to promote it. We're going to announce it." So we had these open mic nights running, and they taught me a lot. So I used to create my own opportunities.
Okay.
In between, yes, I had a few jobs, but my heart was never there.
There.
I mean, I love what I do now.
Yeah.
but
Okay. So when you joined the radio in 2006,
yes,
you stayed.
I had never left. Well,
You never left.
well,
Yeah.
Kinda. I was on the radio.
I remember you took a break at
took a break, yeah.
at one point. I think you went and studied something and came back, or there was a
There was a time. It was
Yeah.
2017.
yes.
And I felt like at that point, boy, was I wrong. I felt like that my radio career has come to an end. And
Okay.
I'm like, okay, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'm going to take the stand-up comedy thing seriously. And I started talking to my friends in LA and New York. And I'm like, I'm planning to come and spend some time with you guys. And they're like, you come down here. We're going to marathon you through all these comedy clubs. I said, great, that's one plan. I got a few gigs in Dubai, went there, spent some time over there. And I actually had this farewell show on the radio. And it's
I
funny.
remember.
A lot of people heard it. A lot of people heard it. I announced the end of my radio
Yes.
career, Jokes on Me. And I think it was March 2017, yes. And I remember ending my show. I said, this is exactly what I said. I said, I joined in 2006. My first song on the radio was Vertical Horizon, Everything You Want. Today I leave you with the last song I'm going to be playing on radio. And it's the same song I started with in 2006.
Okay.
And that was such an emotional moment for me. I played that song. I was literally in tears. Played my last track.
And left.
Packed up.
And left.
Said goodbye to everyone. And I left.
When did you come back?
October. Same year.
Same year.
I get a call and they're like, "Hey, did you take up employment anywhere?" And I said, no, I'm just, I'm just cracking jokes, And they're like, "Oh, good, because we were wondering if you wanted to head the station." And I'm like, "What?"
Oh, so that was
Yeah.
it came in when you were actually not there.
When I was not there.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to say, and I'm like, "Huh?" and that. Again, I always remember these things. I was driving, and okay, for those who are going to ask, I had wireless set on. I was driving, and I got that call, and I was in Seif area.
Okay.
And when the call came in, they're like, "We want you to be the head of the station." And it hit me in that split second that this whole time I've been practicing the power of visualization, and I had no idea. When I was in school, I used to visualize being on the radio. I didn't realize it. I ended up on the radio.
Yeah, you ended up.
When I got that MP3 of Eddie Murphy's Delirious, I used to visualize doing stand-up. I ended up doing stand-up. I didn't realize that when you live the part in your head. I know it's going to sound cheesy.
No,
but
I believe in it.
yeah, and I used to live it. I used to live the experience.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a presenter, and I'm like, if I had the opportunity to lead this team, I would do A, B, C, D. I used to think, I never
Right.
shared it with anyone,
Yeah.
but I used to visualize it. And then I got that opportunity.
Okay.
And at that moment, I realized that whatever you want to achieve, you have to believe it. You have
Right.
to believe that you're going to
Yeah,
achieve
sure.
that. And I've been living with that mindset for the longest time. There's still so many things I haven't achieved yet. I don't know if I'm going to get
Are you
there.
visualizing them?
Every day.
Oh, okay.
Every day.
Okay, tell me something. So now you're heading the radio.
Yes.
Don't you miss being on?
Oh my God. Yes. Yes, I do. I miss, walking in there and hosting my shows and then just moving on to other things.
I remember at a point you came in the mornings. You were with Sarah.
Yes, we
Sarah
hosted a
Nabil.
few shows
Yeah.
together. Yes.
And
Sarah Nabil,
yeah,
poor thing. I bully her so much on air.
I know. I used to hear it all the time, and I was like, "Man, give her a chance to talk. Why are you talking so much?" But I guess you were missing it. That's why.
I miss hosting shows,
yeah.
and even recently a few times I would cover for the presenters, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I miss doing this, but I always remind myself that growth is very important.
Right.
And in my opinion, growth is if not, probably the most important thing in life. Okay,
What's next? What's next for Imran?
What's next? Well, first of all, I want to lose another 10 kilograms.
Okay.
What's next? Wow, good question. Definitely take the radio to the next level.
Okay.
Our team is getting stronger. Our team is getting better.
I know.
We have one member of our team, you might know her, Nuruddin.
I think I know her.
She's doing a phenomenal job on the radio. So that's one thing.
Yeah, because everywhere I go and when it comes up and I say, yeah, Noor, she's my daughter. You're Noor's mother, and so she's a celebrity now.
My mom would relate. My mom, whenever we'd go anywhere, whether it's a supermarket, whether it's a doctor's visit, she'll always go, do you know my son? He's on the radio.
Yes. Yeah.
And she'll always pick the one person who doesn't listen to me.
The right.
And she did that once, and this poor guy, he was like a cashier or something, and he was just like, I'm just here to do my job. I don't know who that is.
And that's,
bless
that's
him.
cute. Yeah.
And,
yeah. So the team, you're building a strong team, and
team coming in, and so one thing on my plate is what's next is definitely taking the radio station to the next level.
Okay. Are we going to see any shows on? I mean, I at one point there were shows that had talks.
Talk shows, you mean?
Talk shows. Yeah.
I mean, they're in the plan, but we are a commercial radio station, so we're mostly focused on music at the moment.
Okay.
But talk shows are definitely in the plan. Again, digital platforms have evolved ridiculously, so at one point we will have the option to host shows that are, that's basically content on demand,
right,
and shows that are live.
Okay.
So to answer part of your question, yes, radio, definitely take the radio to the next level. Going back to the stage, we have stand-up comedy shows coming up, markets opening
so
up.
you are still doing that. Oh, okay.
My last show was pre-COVID. It's a thing now, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
December 2019.
Oh,
that was my last show.
Yeah.
Maz Jubrani was in Bahrain.
Okay.
And I got a call saying, hey, you want to open? And I said, sure. I'll do 15 minutes before you get on stage. And that was a fantastic show.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was my last show in front of a big audience. So yeah, we've haven't publicly said this yet, but we got a show coming up very soon.
Nice.
It's a mix of local comics, probably someone from Saudi, someone from Dubai. So we are getting back to the stage.
Oh, nice.
I'm very excited, but I'm a little nervous too because I haven't tested any new material since 2019.
I'm sure
So-
it'll come up.
It'll come up, but like
Yeah.
again, in Bahrain, we don't have the opportunity or
Right.
the option to just go somewhere and test material.
Yes.
Because
yeah.
sometimes when we write jokes, it's funny here, but when you deliver it on stage, you don't get the reaction you're hoping to get. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? You could either eliminate the joke or make it better.
Right.
So we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So we've got a
Okay.
show coming soon, and I'm excited. I'm excited to get back on stage.
Lovely. I'm excited to see it.
Well, I
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you there.
Okay. Well, thanks, Imran, for coming in and sharing this your story with us.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for
all,
having me.
All the best.
All the best to you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.